The sky above the scarred battlefield burned a deep crimson, fractured by jagged streaks of alien lightning. The Dragon Prince's wings flared, silver scales catching the flickering light, but no matter how fiercely he roared, he could not lift his claws fast enough. The insectoid predators swarmed, snapping mandibles and chittering in a rhythm that felt almost alive. One strike caught the Dragon Prince across the flank and he stumbled, sharp pain tearing through his muscles. He had fought countless wars, but this paralyzing weakness was new. From the chaos above, a skiff hurtled down, kicking up dust and sparks from the cracked ground. Inside it, a young cadet gritted his teeth, hands steady on the controls. Rylan was barely out of the academy, untested in real combat, yet something in his chest screamed that hesitation would mean death, for him and for the dragon. He dove the skiff toward the Dragon Prince, weaving through the alien horde with unnerving precision. The aliens froze for a fraction of a second, confused by the sudden movement, and Rylan seized it. He fired a pulse from a compact disruptor mounted on his craft. The energy hit the closest predators, throwing them off balance. He didn't wait. He leapt from the skiff, boots hitting the cracked ground, heart hammering, and ran straight for the Dragon Prince. The dragon looked at him with wide, wary eyes. Its chest heaved. Fear radiated from it like heat. It had been trained to fight, trained to dominate, but now it could barely raise a claw without trembling. Rylan felt a flash of doubt, then shoved it aside. Humans were fragile, yes, but clever and fearless in ways dragons were not. He had no time to worry about doubt. "Stay with me," he shouted, voice cutting through the screeching chaos. His disruptor cracked again, small arcs of light zipping toward the nearest predators. One by one they fell back, unsure of the sudden human defiance. The Dragon Prince blinked at Rylan, confusion flickering across its face. No dragon had ever had a human so close without fear, or intent to harm. Rylan reached the dragon's flank just as a predator lunged. He rolled, grabbed a jagged piece of debris, and slammed it into the creature, crushing its mandibles. The Dragon Prince roared, half in shock, half in instinct, but it still froze, wings splayed wide, chest heaving. Rylan's pulse raced. Every second counted. Every hesitation could end them both. Then something unexpected happened. A tremor ran through the ground beneath them. Alien energy pulses, rippling outward from a jagged crater not far away. The predators twitched and scuttled, their coordination faltering. A massive shape began to rise from the crater. Its limbs were enormous, black as obsidian, and its eyes burned with unnatural light. Even the Dragon Prince recoiled, scale armor quivering. Rylan's mind raced. The thing emerging was bigger than any predator they had faced, almost monstrous, and it seemed drawn by the dragon's fear. If it reached them, it could crush both dragon and human in an instant. He took a deep breath, gripping the disruptor tighter. He had no plan, none that could guarantee survival, but humans did not wait for plans when survival demanded action. "Follow my lead," he shouted, slashing toward the creature, forcing it to react. Sparks of energy flared from his weapon as the alien hesitated. The Dragon Prince's tail lashed instinctively, knocking a smaller predator aside, yet the great beast from the crater advanced, slow but unstoppable. Rylan's eyes flicked to the dragon. It still hesitated, paralyzed by fear. But he could see it, beneath the terror, something primal, a strength waiting to be awakened. He ducked under a sweeping claw, pressed his disruptor to the alien's leg and fired. The creature roared, staggering, and for a heartbeat, the impossible seemed possible. The Dragon Prince flinched, then lowered its head slightly, following Rylan's lead. A micro smile crept across Rylan's face, but there was no time to celebrate. The alien tremor intensified, cracking the ground beneath them. Dust and jagged shards flew into the air. The Dragon Prince let out a scream of frustration, shaking its wings but unable to lift. Rylan grabbed its claw, tugging with all his strength. He knew the moment they could flee or fall was now. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them split open, a jagged fissure racing toward them. The alien from the crater shifted its gaze directly to Rylan. Its eyes blazed with a strange, intelligent fury. The Dragon Prince froze completely, terror locking its muscles. Rylan inhaled sharply. His pulse surged. He had never faced anything like this, and yet, in that moment, he realized something vital. If he could inspire courage in this mighty creature, if he could force it to act, they both might survive. But if he failed, if hesitation won, the next second would be their last. He planted his feet firmly, gripping the dragon's claw, and shouted over the roar of cracking earth and alien screeches, "Now together!" A second later, the fissure widened, the monstrous alien lunged, and the Dragon Prince, finally, moved. The fissure yawned beneath them, sending a cloud of dust and shards spiraling into the air. Ryland's boots slipped on loose rock, but he held tight to the Dragon Prince's claw, refusing to let go. The alien from the crater loomed above, black limbs swinging like massive blades, its glowing eyes fixed on them with calculating malice. Every second they lingered increased the danger, yet Ryland refused to panic. Fear was contagious and he could not let the dragon sense his doubt. "Move. We have to move now," he shouted, voice echoing over the chaos. The Dragon Prince's wings beat weakly, stirring dust and smoke but not enough to lift them clear. The dragon's chest heaved, eyes darting toward the advancing alien and the fissure racing closer. Instinct warred with fear. Ryland knew the dragon had strength buried deep within, it was simply paralyzed by memory, by failure. Humans thrived in impossible moments, perhaps the dragon could too. Ryland darted forward, using a broken shard of alien tech as a makeshift shield. Sparks erupted where claws struck, and the alien screeched, a sound that rattled the air. Small predators skittered toward them from the battlefield, drawn by the smell of fear. Ryland pivoted, knocking one aside with precise kicks, then swung his disruptor toward another. Each pulse staggered them just long enough for him to drag the Dragon Prince a few feet closer to solid ground. The fissure split further, cracking the earth under their feet. Ryland's heart pounded. One misstep, and they would fall into a jagged pit that could tear even a dragon apart. He glanced at the creature behind them, the alien from the crater, its size now fully terrifying. Its movements were methodical, almost intelligent. This wasn't a mindless predator, it was a hunter and its target was clear, the Dragon Prince. Ryland remembered the small alien energy nodes scattered across the battlefield. He ducked behind one, pressing a button on his disruptor. A pulse shot out, hitting the nearest predator. Its legs buckled, antennae twitching erratically. That small victory sparked something in the Dragon Prince. The great creature's tail lashed instinctively, knocking one predator into the fissure. Dust flew into the air. Ryland smiled briefly, it was the first real, active participation he had seen. A small payoff, but it mattered. "See that?" he said sharply, pointing to the predator tumbling. "You can do this. Now follow me." The Dragon Prince's eyes flickered, confusion and tentative hope mingling. It spread its wings wider this time, wobbly but deliberate. Ryland gripped its claw tighter, pulling it along as they zigzagged over fractured ground. Every pulse of his disruptor slowed another alien, giving them inches, seconds, life. Then a shriek pierced the air. From the fissure emerged smaller, faster creatures, thinner than the previous horde, with jagged mandibles and glowing green eyes. They leapt from crack to crack with impossible speed. Ryland cursed under his breath. The Dragon Prince froze again, terror locking its muscles. He knew it could not fight like this. Hesitation would be fatal. Ryland's mind raced. He could not outfight the alien swarm, not alone. He needed to outsmart them. Spotting a patch of unstable ground ahead, he made a snap decision. "Trust me," he shouted. He kicked a chunk of rock into the fissure. The resulting tremor shook the ground violently. The small predators screeched and stumbled. Ryland seized the moment, tugging at the Dragon Prince's claw. The dragon lunged forward, just barely maintaining balance. Sparks of energy from his disruptor scattered across the battlefield, knocking back the swarm further. A small but crucial victory. Ryland's chest heaved as adrenaline surged. The Dragon Prince glanced at him, confusion replaced by faint recognition. It was beginning to understand. Courage was contagious. Action inspired action. The larger alien loomed nearer, each step making the ground tremble. Its claws struck a pillar of rock, shattering it into shards that scattered across the battlefield. Ryland's pulse skyrocketed. He had to make a critical choice. Keep retreating to safer ground or confront the alien head-on to protect the Dragon Prince. Hesitation would mean death. He chose action. Using the Dragon Prince as cover, Ryland sprinted toward the alien, firing disruptor pulses at its legs. The alien staggered, surprised by the audacity. The Dragon Prince, spurred by Ryland's boldness, lashed its tail violently, knocking debris into the creature's path. Together, human and dragon created a small corridor of survival through the chaos. Every pulse, every strike mattered. Every movement had consequence. For a brief moment, hope sparked. The Dragon Prince roared, half in confusion, half in instinct, and moved more decisively, stepping over debris, flicking predators aside. Ryland shouted encouragement, heart racing. It was working. Small wins, carefully timed, built momentum. But before they could fully escape, the alien from the crater let out a piercing scream. The sound triggered tremors across the battlefield. The fissure widened dangerously beneath them. Dust, rock, and energy arcs surged. One misstep and they would be swallowed. Ryland's eyes widened. He grabbed the Dragon Prince's claw, teeth gritted. "Hold on," he yelled. But even as he spoke, the ground beneath them cracked further. The alien's gaze locked onto Ryland with unsettling intelligence. It wasn't just hunting, it was studying, anticipating. Every second, every movement, counted more than ever. And then, from deep within the fissure, a bright pulse of alien energy shot upward, striking the Dragon Prince squarely. The dragon stumbled, wings flaring wildly, its fear threatening to paralyze it completely. Ryland slammed the disruptor against the alien energy node again, praying it would buy them another second. The battlefield held its breath. Every predator froze mid-motion. The Dragon Prince's eyes widened, not with fear, but with the faintest flicker of determination. Something had shifted. Ryland didn't know if it was enough, but he did know one thing: this was far from over. The fissure widened beneath them, jagged edges spitting up dust and sparks of alien energy. Ryland's boots skidded across the cracked ground as he tugged the Dragon Prince forward. The massive beast was trembling but moving, slowly, uncertainly, but moving. Every step felt like walking a tightrope over a pit that could swallow them whole. The alien horde hissed and skittered closer, but Ryland's mind was focused elsewhere. Something in the fissure pulsed with a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. He slowed, crouching beside the Dragon Prince. "Do you feel that?" he whispered, pointing to a glowing orb deep in the fissure. It hovered above a jagged ridge, humming with strange energy. The smaller predators hesitated, confused by its light. The Dragon Prince glanced at it, curiosity flickering behind its fear. Ryland's pulse quickened. That energy wasn't random. It had a pattern. Alien tech often did. He studied the orb for a moment, eyes sharp. Then it hit him. If he could trigger a reaction, he might distract the horde long enough for both dragons to escape. It was risky, he had no idea what the orb could do. But humans thrived on risk when survival demanded it. He motioned to the Dragon Prince. "Follow me. Trust me." The dragon hesitated, but something in Ryland's stance, in the unwavering confidence, nudged instinct into motion. It flapped its wings, dust kicking up, muscles trembling but determined. Together they sprinted toward the energy orb, dodging predators that lunged from every crack. Ryland's hand slammed against the orb. It shivered, then pulsed brighter, sending a wave of light across the battlefield. The predators froze mid-leap, their antennae twitching violently. Even the massive alien from the crater halted, head tilting as if studying the sudden change. A small payoff, an instant precious advantage. Ryland didn't pause. He tapped the orb again, and this time the pulse expanded, knocking smaller predators off their feet. The Dragon Prince roared, wings flaring, tail lashing. Ryland jumped atop the dragon's back, gripping its scales. For the first time, the beast seemed to understand. Fear still lingered, but it was tempered with possibility. It was a fragile spark, but sparks could ignite. Then came the discovery that shook Ryland to his core. Among the debris near the fissure, half buried in rock, lay a smaller dragon, chained and unconscious. Its scales were dulled, its breathing shallow. Ryland's eyes widened. The aliens weren't just hunting dragons, they were draining them, feeding their energy into that orb. The Dragon Prince had not failed because of weakness, it had been sabotaged. Ryland clenched his jaw. The stakes had just doubled. He couldn't only save one dragon, now he had to save another. Every action he took mattered, and missteps would be fatal. The alien horde was still approaching, and the massive creature from the crater watched with unnerving intelligence. Time was slipping. He pressed the disruptor against the orb again. Energy pulses rippled outward, creating temporary barriers that slowed the smaller predators. Using the momentary chaos, he darted to the chained dragon. The metal was alien alloys he had never seen, but his fingers found weak points. Sparks flew as he forced the locks, muscles straining. The Dragon Prince hovered nearby, wings flaring defensively at anyone who approached. Finally the chains broke. The smaller dragon stirred, eyes fluttering open, weak but alive. Relief surged through Ryland, but there was no time to celebrate. The fissure beneath them trembled violently. The massive alien from the crater roared, swinging its limbs in a calculated, terrifying arc. One swipe could crush both dragons in an instant. Ryland's mind raced. He couldn't fight it head-on. He had to outthink it. Spotting a shard of alien tech embedded in the fissure wall, he grabbed it and slammed it toward the alien. Sparks erupted, creating a distraction. The alien paused, surprised by the human's audacity. That split second was all Rylan needed. He shouted to the Dragon Prince. Now, take the smaller one and leap. The Dragon Prince hesitated, its fear still raw, but the instinct for survival amplified by Rylan's courage surged forward. With a powerful thrust of wings, the dragon lifted the smaller one into the air. Rylan clung to its back, heart pounding as they soared above the fissure, the alien horde snapping uselessly below. They landed on firmer ground beyond the danger, the smaller dragon trembling but alive. Rylan slid off the Dragon Prince's back, breathless, mud streaked across his face. The Dragon Prince lowered its wings, scales glinting in the alien light. It looked at Rylan, not with fear, not yet, but with a dawning respect. For a heartbeat, relief washed over him. They had survived, if only barely. But the orb pulsed again, brighter this time, sending ripples across the battlefield. The smaller dragon twitched, reacting to the energy. Rylan realized with a sinking feeling, the alien tech wasn't finished. It was drawing power from the dragon's life force in ways he could barely understand. The massive alien stomped closer, eyes fixed on them, energy rippling around its limbs. Rylan's pulse quickened. They had bought themselves time, but the real trial was just beginning. The battlefield wasn't just dangerous, it was alive, reacting to them. Every step, every move had consequences. Every second mattered. Rylan squared his shoulders. He could not let fear dictate their fate. The Dragon Prince had begun to trust him, small as that trust was. He had to keep pushing, keep thinking, keep acting. Courage was contagious and the dragons needed it now more than ever. Then the orb pulsed once more, and a beam of light shot upward into the sky, piercing the clouds. The air vibrated and a new, massive shadow stretched across the battlefield. Something huge was approaching from the other side of the fissure. A shape taller than any alien, more terrifying than any predator. Rylan's eyes widened. This was no longer just survival. This was a trial. And the real enemy had not yet revealed itself. The shadow loomed over the battlefield, massive and moving with impossible grace. Rylan's stomach twisted. The fissure beneath them rattled violently, rock shards bouncing in every direction. The orb's pulsing energy had intensified, casting an eerie green glow across the jagged terrain. The smaller dragon huddled close to the Dragon Prince, trembling but alive. Rylan tightened his grip on the disruptor, teeth clenched. This was it, the moment where courage had to be more than instinct. The enormous alien stepped forward, its limbs striking the ground like hammers. Each step cracked the earth, sending shockwaves that rattled Rylan's chest. The smaller predators scattered, fleeing, or maybe following orders. They weren't just mindless, they were coordinated. The Dragon Prince flared its wings, trembling, ready to strike but frozen by the enormity of the threat. Rylan had seconds. Hesitation meant death. He leapt from the Dragon Prince's back, sprinting toward the fissure's edge, disruptor blazing. Pulses of energy shot out, scattering smaller predators. The giant alien swiveled its head, eyes blazing with intelligence. It was calculating, anticipating, and it was hunting. Come on. You can do this. Rylan shouted at the Dragon Prince, his voice raw with urgency. The dragon's tail flicked, and it let out a low, trembling roar. Something deep inside stirred. Fear was still there, but now it was paired with the faintest spark of resolve. Rylan had seen it before in humans facing impossible odds. The moment when instinct became courage and courage became action. The alien struck. Its massive claw crashed toward the Dragon Prince. Rylan darted forward, slamming his disruptor into the alien's leg. Sparks and energy arcs exploded across the battlefield. The alien recoiled, momentarily thrown off balance. That split second was enough. The Dragon Prince lunged, wings beating with newfound power, tail lashing in a wide arc that smashed a cluster of smaller predators. The smaller dragon followed, imitating instinct it barely understood, snapping at alien limbs with feeble but determined strikes. Rylan's heart pounded, but he couldn't stop. He leapt onto the Dragon Prince's back again, gripping scales as the giant alien swung wildly. Sparks and debris flew past his face. He aimed the disruptor at the glowing orb embedded in the fissure wall. If he could destroy it, the alien's advantage would vanish. The energy pulses intensified, lashing toward the Dragon Prince, but Rylan fired anyway. The orb shattered in a blinding flash. The shockwave knocked the alien off balance. Its roar shook the air, deafening, but it was faltering. The Dragon Prince sensed the shift. Muscles that had been paralyzed by fear now surged with power. Wings beat stronger, claws struck harder, and eyes glinted with fierce determination. Ryland's grip tightened. This was a partnership. Human courage inspiring dragon strength, dragon might protecting human ingenuity. The fissure beneath them quaked violently, threatening to swallow everything. The smaller dragon struggled to maintain balance, but Ryland leaned down and shouted, "Hold on! You can do this too." Its wings beat with effort, lifting it over the edge as the dragon prince shielded it with its massive body. Together they moved as one, dodging falling debris and the alien's desperate strikes. Ryland fired his disruptor again and again, each pulse creating openings. The alien reeled, staggered, and then charged in a final desperate attack. The dragon prince met it head-on, claws tearing into its legs, wings battering with unmatched force. Sparks and scales flew, dust and debris clouding the battlefield. Ryland shouted, urging both dragons forward, channeling every ounce of courage he possessed. Then the alien faltered. A flash of light from the fissure, a tremor, and its massive body stumbled into the ground. The dragon prince roared triumphantly, tail smashing the alien into the cracks. The smaller predators scattered, some fleeing, some frozen in place, disoriented. The orb was gone, the energy dissipated. The battlefield was silent except for the hiss of dust and the distant rumble of collapsing rock. Ryland slid off the dragon prince's back, knees scraping against the jagged earth. His chest heaved, muscles trembling. The dragon prince lowered its wings, scales gleaming in the fading glow. Its eyes met Ryland's, and in that gaze was recognition. He had not just survived, he had inspired, guided, and saved. Courage, intelligence, and compassion had won where raw strength alone would have failed. The smaller dragon stirred beside them, shaking off dust, wings flexing tentatively. Ryland knelt beside it, placing a hand gently on its scales. "It's okay. You're safe now," he whispered. Even in exhaustion, his voice carried warmth, steadiness, and calm. The dragons felt it. The bond had been forged, not by force but by human will. But then a subtle vibration ran through the ground. Ryland's eyes narrowed. The fissure trembled again, more violently than before, and the air above shimmered with alien energy. The shadows that had been hiding beyond the crater stirred. Something larger, more dangerous, something they had not yet faced was coming. Ryland's chest tightened. He had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The dragon prince, now breathing steadily, looked at him with a flicker of understanding, a trust he had earned in minutes that would have taken centuries in any other circumstance. Together they had defied impossible odds. Together they had survived. But the battlefield was alive. The fissure pulsed. Energy crackled, and a new, unknown presence loomed just beyond the smoke and dust. Ryland clenched his fists. "We're not done yet," he muttered, voice low but firm. He could feel it, the next trial, larger and more perilous, waiting beyond sight. The dragon prince flexed its wings, tail lashing slowly, aware now that courage had a form beyond instinct. Ryland stood beside it, disruptor ready, heart racing. Humans thrived in moments like this, where fear existed but action mattered more. They had survived against impossible odds before. They would survive again. The fissure trembled once more, sending shards of rock into the air. A distant, low hum began, rising steadily, and shadows moved just beyond the smoke. Whatever was coming next, it would test everything: strength, courage, and heart. Ryland's gaze hardened. This was only the beginning. The battlefield lay in ruin. Dust drifted like gray snow over jagged rock, scorched earth, and shattered alien tech. The fissure had stopped trembling for now, but the pulse of energy from the shattered orb lingered in the air like a warning. Ryland stood beside the dragon prince, breathing heavily, every muscle aching from exertion. The smaller dragon was huddled near them, wings twitching nervously, still unsure of its newfound freedom. Ryland looked at the dragon prince, its scales glinting faintly in the green-tinged light. The beast flexed its wings slowly, claws scraping against stone. It had fought, not out of instinct, not out of training, but because a human had shown it courage. Ryland had led by example, and now the dragon's eyes shone with a fledgling understanding. Fear could be faced. Strength could be chosen. He lowered a hand to the dragon's snout. "You were meant to fight," he whispered, "but fighting isn't just about claws or wings. It's about heart. And you have one." The dragon prince blinked, a shiver running down its spine, as if absorbing the meaning in his words. It nudged him gently, and Ryland smiled, the tiniest spark of connection igniting between them. The smaller dragon stirred fully, wings flaring. It nudged the dragon prince and then Ryland, chirping softly. A bond was forming, fragile but undeniable. The human had not just survived the battlefield. He had forged trust, loyalty, and courage in creatures that had been paralyzed by fear. A distant rumble made Rylan glance upward. The fissure still pulsed faintly. Whatever alien presence had been stirring beyond the smoke was now silent, but not gone. He could feel it watching, learning. The battlefield was quiet now, but tension hung in the air like a coiled spring. Rylan's heart thumped, but he didn't flinch. Humans thrived where fear existed, and he knew the truth. Courage and action mattered more than the odds stacked against you. Rylan, the Dragon Prince rumbled softly, a deep, resonant sound that shook the air. There is more coming. Its voice was low, not fully formed in language but enough for him to understand. The creature's body tensed, wings stretching wide as if preparing for the next trial. Rylan's pulse surged, not with fear but determination. He had no illusions about what lay ahead. Whatever waited beyond the fissure was likely stronger, smarter, and deadlier than anything they had faced. But humans had a trait no alien could mimic: adaptability, ingenuity, and an unwavering will to survive and protect others. He straightened, gripping his disruptor. "We'll face it," he said quietly, firmly, "together." The Dragon Prince nodded, muscles flexing. The smaller dragon chirped, flapping its wings in encouragement. The three of them, human and dragons, formed a fragile alliance, born of trust and shared survival. Rylan knelt beside the smaller dragon, examining it for injuries. Nothing life-threatening, just fatigue and fear. "You're safe now," he murmured, brushing a streak of dust from its scales. The creature chirped again, a tiny spark of trust shining through. Survival was more than staying alive. It was connection, courage, and hope. Then the ground trembled faintly, and a subtle vibration ran through the fissure again. Rylan's eyes narrowed. The alien presence hadn't left. It had retreated, observing, calculating. Whatever came next, it would not be mindless. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The Dragon Prince lowered its head toward Rylan, letting him climb onto its back. "We move forward," he whispered. The smaller dragon hopped onto his other side, wings fluttering nervously. Rylan's mind raced. This wasn't the end. The alien forces had a strategy, and the energy pulses suggested a larger plan he could not yet see. But humans thrived on problem-solving, on taking impossible situations and turning them into victories. Rylan looked back at the fissure, glowing faintly, and then at the battlefield around them. Every step they had taken had mattered. Every choice had consequences. And yet, he had learned something invaluable. Courage is contagious. Strength is not just muscle or claws, it is heart, intelligence, and determination. He had awakened that in the Dragon Prince, saved the smaller dragon, and survived when odds were impossibly against him. He let out a deep breath, chest heaving. "We've survived today," he said. "And we'll survive tomorrow too. Together." The Dragon Prince rumbled low, the sound resonating like an echo of approval. The smaller dragon chirped, fluttering its wings as if affirming the same. But even in this fragile peace, the fissure's pulse reminded him of the larger unknown. The alien presence beyond the smoke had not been defeated, it had been delayed, distracted. And the energy spikes from the orb had hinted at a more complex plan, something that could threaten more than dragons or humans if left unchecked. Rylan's eyes hardened with resolve. Humans thrived where fear existed, and now more than ever he knew his role: to lead, to inspire, and to act when it mattered most. He had turned fear into courage, weakness into strength. And he would do it again no matter the odds. The sun, hidden behind clouds of dust and energy arcs, began to peek through, casting shards of light across the battlefield. For the first time in hours, Rylan felt a spark of hope. They were alive. They were together. And they were ready for whatever came next. As they moved towards safer ground, the fissure pulsed one last time, brighter than before, sending a shimmering light into the distant sky. Shadows shifted at its edges, and a deep hum resonated from within, hinting at challenges even greater than those they had just faced. Rylan glanced at the Dragon Prince and the smaller dragon. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The real test is still out there." His voice was steady, confident, and resolute. Humans thrived not because they were invincible, but because they never stopped fighting, never stopped thinking, and never gave up hope. The dragons responded, wings flexing, ready to follow. Rylan took a deep breath. Whatever lay beyond the fissure, whatever alien force waited in the shadows, they would face it. Together. And far in the distance, the faint pulse of energy hinted at a new, even greater mystery.